Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this devotional with Chaplain Dan. I'm Dan Bonner, the chaplain for residential advocacy, and I'm very thankful this morning to be with you because we're going to talk about something that is a little, hopeful ultimately, if difficult at first. We're going to talk about expectations we have of ourselves at this stage in life. I want to tell you two stories and read a third, each of them about individuals. The first story is the story of one of our servers in one of our dining rooms. I've gotten to know him well because he fixes my and Sue's plates to take home most evenings. We kind of look for each other in the facility there, and I wait until near the end of the time, about 6:05 to go by, so he and I will have a chance to visit, as well as let me pick up my food before they take it away at 6:15 in the evening. I'm not going to tell you his name. I will tell you, though, with his permission, that he grew up in another country, grew up in a country that has not always been friends with the United States. And he would have reason, as a young man who'd been educated within that culture in his homeland, would have every reason, I would think, to be standoffish and not very pleasant to be around. But I must tell you, this young man lights up every day that I meet him, lights it up, makes it joyful for me. When I first got acquainted with him, my efforts at Pidgin Spanish that I picked up 30 years ago as a pastor down in Brownsville on the Texas border, my efforts to communicate with him, and he's not yet fluent in English, but his eyes communicate something much more clearly than words. His eyes, when I first met him, were full of joy. I've wondered for several weeks why he seemed so joyful, and then one evening he took the time to pull out his smartphone and show me why. His partner in life was in the photograph, a beautiful woman, and obviously what the scripture says is heavy with child. She was close to giving birth, and through one of the other servers who does speak English, I was able to understand his joy. was that this was going to be their first child. That's something that filled his life. And I suspect those of you who were around him, are around him, experienced that as well. In spite of the language barrier, he communicated joy. Then I had to be in the hospital recently for some minor surgery and rehabilitation, and I was gone about 3 weeks. When I came back, I saw him. The first time I saw him there in the dining room, he whipped out his phone, said, El Pastor, El Pastor. And he couldn't wait but show me a handsome young baby boy. And he beamed from ear to ear. He and his wife and that blessed bambino. Oh, that's reason to be joyful. That's one story. The second story I want to tell you is, again, not calling any names, but it's not quite as, well, let me tell you. I was going into the entrance of one of our communities here at Estrella, one of our residential communities, and out on the big porch where the comfortable chairs are, there sat a fellow all by himself. He said, Chappie, Chappie. He knows he and I have talked several times over these last years, and he calls me Chappie. Chappie, Chappie, come here, he said. I hate to mimic him, but he said, you're always on these devotionals talking about doing good and showing liveliness and hope and having faith. I want you to know, Chappie, I don't feel any of that. I can look around and see all these problems that my neighbors have, and look at me. I'm just cripping around. He uses a walker to get around. I'm just cripping around. Well, I was there on my electric scooter, of course, and I might have been able to outrun him, but not if we didn't have our apparatus to help us. Chappie, I would just don't get this joy stuff. And we talked for a while, but his countenance did not change. Two people in our community here at Estrella, one full of joy, the other no joy at all. How do you make a community? How do you help two people like that? One doesn't need much help to show joy. The other, no words from the chaplain, at least this chaplain, were able to bring out anything except gruffness and consternation. There is a third story, and it may give some connection, some aspiration, some what I might call participation for those of us who go through times, as we all do, I'm sure, like my disgruntled buddy there on the porch was expressing that day. How does one move from where he is to the joy of the server in one of our lines? Well, we're not all candidates to parent new children, so his strategy doesn't work probably for us. But there is an invitation that he's accepted, and perhaps my acquaintance who was so disgruntled has forgotten. This invitation is not from me. No. Well, let me simply read you the story. It comes from the Gospel of John. I'm going to read the fourth verse, the fourth chapter, the 16th through 26th verses. You'll recognize this. Jesus, going through a village in the Galilee, found himself at midday in what must have been the hot sun, found himself, pretty thirsty. You know, Jesus had human needs too. But John's Gospel says that when he went to the well at the center of the town, the place to draw water or to find someone who will share water, if you're a visitor like he was, his disciples had gone on to find food. He was by himself there by the well, except for one woman. He told her, after they'd talked a while, "Go and call your husband, and the two of you come back. I'll tell you about joy. I'll tell you about hope. I'll tell you about peace." She simply looked down at the earthen square and said in a modest voice, "I have no husband." Jesus perhaps reached out and lifted her face so that she was able to look our Master in the eye. This is what Jesus said to this disheartened spirit. You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you had 5 husbands, and the man you're now with is not your husband. What you just said is quite true. And I believe Jesus at that point, rather than look condemning, smiled. "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you and other Jews claim that the place where we must worship is Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, A time is coming when you will worship the Creator of the earth and the sustainer of your life and hope and mine. Where you will worship this Father, Creator, neither on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. For salvation comes from those who know of God, who I call Father. Yet a time is coming, and again he smiled. A time is coming and has now come. It's now. It's not way down the line. It's not after the cemetery service. It's now. Oh, Jesus. Jesus said to the woman by the well, and says to my disgruntled friend in his easy chair on the porch of one of our communities, and has said in the joy-filled life of my new acquaintance there in one of our dining rooms, the father of a new gift from God. The time is coming, and now is, when we all shall worship God in spirit and in truth. The place doesn't matter. Your station in life doesn't matter. For we know that God is with us. God is spirit. I come to tell you today, my sister, Jesus said to the woman by the well, and says to each of us, his worshipers must worship in joy, worship in the Spirit and in truth. That brought a smile to her. The same smile I imagine that I see in the young father who serves food to many of us. And that same smile, that same hope, that same invitation and expectation is extended to my disgruntled friend, to all of us, to all of us. The woman said, I know that the Messiah, that is the Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. Still smiling, I bet she was. Then Jesus looked at her and said, I, the one who speak to you today, am he. Be of joy and good cheer. 3 stories, 3 experiences, but 1 invitation. The invitation to expect the path of joy is for us. Thanks for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you the next time we gather here on Channel 18 for this devotional with Chaplain Dan. In the words of the old folk hymn, I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. The woman at the well that day turned her despondent and rejected life into one of joy because she experienced joy. Maybe that joy could be communicated by each of us to someone today or in the days to come. May that be your hope, and may joy be your life. See you next time.